Hey there viewers, welcome back to another episode of Ray of All Trades. Today we are working on a John Deere LA150. First thing on the list is I got to put a tube in the tire because I can't get it up to my shop because the tire's flat and there's no way for it to take air. So yeah, pretty bad shape. What I look at for those, I don't know if it shows up on camera very well, but there's some pretty significant cracks in the tire. Just want to be able to put a tube inside this thing because it's not going to seal it very well otherwise. So clean all the dirt and debris around out of there. What I've done is I've just mounted a pole, any kind of conduit, whatever else, and a vise to stabilize it. I'm going to take out the old valve stem. The easiest way I found to do that is on the inside. Just take a box knife and just cut right through it. Pull off your valve stem. You sometimes can stuff a tube in here and work your way around. It's really difficult, so I always find it easier to pull one side of the tire up. You may have to break the bead on the other side to give yourself enough flexibility, but generally this usually has enough flex to allow you to stuff a tube in here once you get this bead up over the rim. Two irons. I'm going to take these two and I'm going to push them apart. That gives you enough access to be able to stuff the tube in there. If you can't get enough of that in there, you'll have to break the bead on the bottom side and push it up. But and it's not that bad of a deal to do that. So I'm going to try to stuff that tube in there, and I'm going to grab the valve stem and pull it out of the hole here. Once you get your tube identified, as you relax the tube, you can kind of tell which way is the closest one to the valve. So like this one is trying to push the other direction, so I want it to face up in its relaxed position. So I'm going to push that one, stuff it in, and I'm going to aim for getting the valve stem up through that hole right there. So I'm just going to massage the tube into place, being careful not to cut it on anything, and work my way to getting that valve stem through that hole. Got a clamp handy that I'm going to grab the valve stem once I have it through the rim. I'm going to grab the valve stem like that and just clamp it on to hold it in place. So since this bottom bead is still seated on the rim, it's going to be a lot harder, but I'm going to reach in, try to grab that stem and push it through this hole, and I can pull it out, put the clamp on there to hold it. Something like that when you've got the tube set in there. So make sure that it's centered. I try to wiggle it back and forth a little bit, make sure that it's centered. You want to take any remnants of that tube and make sure that they're out of the way, because your next step is you're going to be prying this back onto the rim. I like to lubricate the rim and this tire area with some silicone lubricant. You can use other things like oil and things like that, but just keep in mind that oil is not going to dissipate as fast as the silicone will. It will work, and it most likely won't slip, but there's always going to be a few worst case scenarios. So, and then just try to pry it back into place. There's a couple of tricks you can do on this, and let me show you real quick. You can use a pair of vice grips as a leverage point, but I like to put it through a rag just to keep from scratching up the rim. Just clamp that onto the rim. That's pretty solid there. Now all I'm going to be doing is utilizing that as a leverage point because that's below the rim surface, so the tire from this point won't keep popping out. So let me lube this up one more time. Go. Unless I punctured the tube, we should be good to go. So always shake it around a little bit, make sure that tube's centered, and then check your valves to make sure that it's centered. Outside of the tire actually tells you the pressure. When mounting, unless beads are seated, inflation over 35 pounds can cause fatal explosion. So I don't want to exceed 35 pounds seating these beads. Once it's at the 35 pounds, I want to drop it to 14 pounds operation. So if you release that clamp, make sure you're holding onto that valve stem, because if it pulls down inside the tire, you got to take it back off again. So try to give it a chance to inflate that tube, make sure that I'm still centered. And I saw the bead actually come up, and it's tight all the way around. So now when I don't want to exceed 14 pounds of pressure, because that's my operation pressure. And there we go, 14 pounds. Okay, we're working on a LT150 John Deere, and the deck belt needs to be replaced. I also need to put some blades on it, but what you'll notice is that the wheels have fallen off. So while it's not necessary to pull off the deck to change the belt, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you guys how I pull off the deck to do this. So because I'm going to change the belts, I'm going to do some welding on it. Probably some grinding and sanding and everything else. So back here, I'm going to try and get you guys in there. There's a cotter pin right here. Releases this arm. So let's pull out this cotter pin. Try to do this one-handed. Right. I always put the cotter pin back in if I can help it so I don't lose it. So try to drop that in. Should be 2 quick releases on this side. Probably going to have to raise up on this deck to release that, so I'm raising it with one hand, pulling out the quick release with the other. It's almost there. Compressing a spring on the back side. There we go. Drop that side. Let's go around and grab the other. The second side's always a little bit heavier. Try to get you guys in focus. Positions are raising up. That didn't help. Raise up the deck and you guys fill out a seam. So raising up the deck with one hand, pulling the pin with the other. Drop the deck. That's released. Now all I have to do is pull the deck forward a little bit because I got to get the belt off of the front pulley. So this one has enough room to put it over the top of those two keepers. Put those keepers back on. They actually help hold the belt in place. So anyway, that drops off. I need to slide the deck forward a little bit. So I'm going to slide the deck forward so that this arm comes out of here, and then I pull the deck out sideways. So let me try to put you guys back here. Arm out. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. And the whole thing should pull right out. And that right there is why we're changing out the belt. Like I said, we're going to be welding on some wheels on the front, put those back on, and it's getting new blades at the same time because this thing it's definitely worn out. As you can see, they're not supposed to be turned that direction, so those are in pretty bad shape. While you got it apart, always clean out these spindles. They always get a bunch of crap in them. So I said little pieces at a time. A little bit of welding, a little bit of fabricating. For the blades, I got brand new blades ordered because these cannot be saved, and I just used a little impact to pull those off and back on and set them by about 40 foot-pounds. Look for any kind of grease fittings before you put this back together. Take time to scrape out the underside of the deck if it needs it. Clean all the junk off of it, and I said to put this belt on, you actually have to pull off this pulley. It doesn't look like you can scoot that by. I think it's a 9/16 it looks like. Just pull that out. And then I would definitely just clean everything up before you put it back together. Okay, John Deere with a 38-inch deck. The John Deere original part number M126536 Kevlar belt. So let's take off these 8mm or 5/16 bolts. 3 of them. Okay. Routing, obviously, this is the most rearward. Goes out, around, and then back up. So making sure that it stays on the inside of this brake. It's actually a brake for the belt. This is a 5/8. It's got another bolt on the back side. Head on the back side. Appears to be it's a 5/8 bolt on that side as well. So if you're using an impact, it will probably come right out. bushing, side in there like that. So I'm going to place the nut on the back side. I should be able to just take that right off. I'm going to need to pull this pulley as well, 1/2 inch. Just temporarily set it down. Drop the new belt in there. There. Make sure that's on next. Tighten that up. Like that. Like that. Just go around just like that. Lost my bolt. Carriage bolt up through the bottom. This is the 1/2 inch. Tighten it up. Make sure everything still spins freely. And there's your belt. So this is your brake assembly. So when it's released, it stops. This brake stops up against here. And that's pretty much it. So here's your quick release arms. So they're dropping in through holes in there, so your arms fit down inside there. Anyway, that's the new belt. Now I'm just waiting on blades to arrive. And I've got to do some metal fabrication to make those wheels fit. Okay friends, so the parts arrived. New mower blades, you can see it's definitely time. These were blades made by a company called 810. They've done some pretty decent work as far as the chainsaw blades, so I'm kind of impressed with them so far. I figured I'd give them a try with these. You know, they're trying to make a name for themselves. Not bad. They did powder coat the outside of the blade, so it did take some of the sharpness away here. I'm imagining once that paint's gone, it'll clean right up. Anyway, it says grass side, but always, if you have a turn up, that always goes up. So that's one way to easily tell that you're doing it wrong if you're not backwards or not. So let's see. It seems to mount up pretty well. I use the 3/8 impact, which on the highest setting gives me about 40 foot-pounds of torque. Make sure that's on there good. Give it a quick spin just to make sure it doesn't hit anything. Yep, that looks pretty good. Let's get this other one installed. Just get all this debris off of here. It's faster than trying to cut it and take it off, but if that's all you can do. Yeah, nice weight to the blades. I'm only using them to be able to tell how well they're going to hold up, but as of right now, I'm pretty happy with them. That one's hitting right there on that, on the deck. Let's see if that's the only place it's hitting. It's going to be hitting right about here. I can tell that the deck is bent in this one area. I'm going to bend it back out, make sure that it stays there. This has a bagger chute that comes off of here. I'm guessing that it hit something, which will probably explain why both of these wheels are busted off. So let me just get a pipe wrench. Usually a pipe wrench does a pretty good job of grabbing it and getting some leverage to turn that out the way, but yeah, you can see these blades, they took a beating towards me. I think that actually got pretty close right there. Oh yeah, that looks pretty good. There's no way for the blades to touch. Yep, I'm liking that. That looks pretty good. Let's get a... Got use out of these, huh? Fit just like that. Let's make sure I'm not doing this wrong. Definitely doesn't fit over here. So this one definitely fits over here. So this right here should get welded in place right on there. Let's try to get a hammer and a block and get that somewhat flat first. So that's for fine body work. See how close we can get. Alright, let's get that ground down. Okay friends, so we got our new belt put on, checked our pulleys, make sure everything was good. We've got one wheel welded on. This metal's still a little bit on the hot side, so I'm going to try to be careful there. Got the mower back up on a lift. Ramps. Can't afford a lift yet. I'm working on it. We'll make sure that these pins are in the out position so that they're easier to drop in. All of this is in the right position. Let's get that slid up. Remember, we're going to be attaching here. We're going to be attaching here and here. And then we're going to be attaching that bar up front. Okay, let's take the lift bar, slide it up through that keeper. There's a cone shape right here, and that needs to drop into that groove. So just like that. That's what's going to attach to this right here. This belt will come up over the top of here, and we're going to attach that there. So let's go ahead and get that in place. This belt can go up at the very end. My head was probably in the way that y'all probably didn't see that. So anyway, this right here jumped into that groove and pulled back. My belt is on top of it, so it can go up into this pulley over these keepers here in just a minute. Right. Let's see. This is the pin that I said goes back here. These lift arms here need to drop into those arms there. So you want to try to line it up like that. There is a hole back here that the deck engagement pin drops through. Slide the cotter pin in. I think it was easier to do it that way, in that direction. Let's put that on first before you do these. I don't really know exactly. Anyway, so we're gonna lift up, slide that pin through. It should go all the way through both sets of holes there. This one, the pins are kind of worn, so it takes some finagling. Sure she drops all the way through the other side. So this center one is on. Both of these are latched back in. The front's on. Let's get that front pulley on. This goes over the top of that one, and that one goes over the top of the other one. Get into those grooves first. All right, and then there's going to be a spring-loaded tension here. Basically, I'm just pulling tension towards me until the pulleys compress. Gives me enough grip to be able to put it up in the groove. Sorry for breathing in your ear like that. Next step, so I lowered the deck to be able to get more access to it. So anyway, push in the deck height on the left side of the mower, grab the adjuster, put it up to your desired cut height, and then let off. And that should be it for the deck. New belt and new blades. And now I need to figure out how I'm going to put another wheel on this side. I have to fabricate something because that looks awful close. You can kind of see it with that blade, but it's not touching. I may end up pounding it out though. While I think about the how I'm going to do the wheel, let's go ahead and get this thing tuned up. Looks like the oil drain is on this side, oil filter's on this side. So lucky me, I'm on a hill. I'm going to start it up and I'm going to turn the tractor sideways and make it so that this is facing downhill. I'm going to make sure that this is facing downhill. I'm going to turn the wheel that direction to give me room for all the oil to dump into. That gives me room to change the filter, the air filter, fuel filters on the other side, and spark plugs on the other side. So let me get you guys set up in a stand while I move this tractor around. Quick release on the oil. This is I wouldn't even call it a quarter turn. It's like maybe an eighth of a turn. It goes to the unlock position and then it has an O-ring, so you just have to wiggle it off of there. It will, there's an O-ring that seals it. It's just a plastic cap with a lock on it. While that's draining, this is the kit we're installing. It is the LT150 John Deere, also Scott's S1642. It's supposed to have everything we need. Let's find out. Looks like a new oil filter. They didn't put a cover on them. I like when they wrap these with plastic just to make sure nothing gets in there. But anyway, new oil filter, 2 quarts of oil. Looks like a new oil air filter, a new pre-filter that we need to coat with a thin coat of oil. Looks like a fuel filter, a Briggs & Stratton spark plug, and a service tag. Really not bad machines. It's engineered pretty well. Like, it's got a plastic catch. If the oil hits it, it runs into there. Well, I mean, you can see it working right now. So, okay, once the oil finishes draining, clean off that oil ring, that O-ring for the oil cap. So, it just pushes on, and a slight turn to lock it. You'll see the keeper there. Slight turn to lock it. Helps to clean off any kind of excess oil for a couple reasons. Number one is it keeps it clean. Number two, it tells you if you're leaking from somewhere. So, old oil filter out. Clean up this surface because that's what your oil filter is going to mate to. It's not going to be super tight. Clean that off. Put some fresh oil. Just get yourself a half of a capful, something like that. We're going to put that half a capful on the O-ring for the oil filter. It helps with getting the filter off next time. Just hand tight. Take the remainder of that oil on that cap, pour it on the pre-filter, and just rub it on that pre-filter. We're going to put that on the outside of our air filter. Helps make this air filter last longer, catches extra contaminants. This motor's fairly clean. If it's not, what you would do is try to get some compressed air and blow off all of the dirt and excess that's around there before pulling that loose. Put the air filter on. Make sure it seats all the way down. Tighten it back up. So one of the things that bothered me when I saw this was that this filter is like sticking between the latch and the plastic and everything, and I honestly think that filter deserves to be back here behind that. I understand that it's close to the solenoid and everything, but honestly it's also close to that power on that solenoid too. Excuse me, on the starter as well. So what I'd like to do is move that filter. So let's move this about that far back. Replace this one. 1/4 inch fuel line. Follow the direction of fuel flow. It always has an arrow on it. I don't know if you can see it, but the arrow is pointing that direction, so basically tank to carburetor. Otherwise, if you had it reversed, it will plug up really fast. So let's put the fuel line on there. Kind of snug. This doesn't fit tight, then I'm gonna, yeah, those fit tight. Okay. I'm gonna say then I'll just change for a different fuel line. This just happened to come with another kit that I got. On there, just like that. And like I said, this, go ahead and measure this back. Looks like we want to cut it right about there. Trying to catch all the gasoline that's falling out. I have an overcast day today. Waiting on a storm to arrive. Virginia weather. When it's the weather, you just wait 5 minutes, it'll change. I think that'll probably do us a little bit better. Kind of gets it out of the way. Won't keep getting pinched. So while we're here, okay, 3-inch extension, 5/8 socket. Oh, a nice brown color. It's actually running really well. So too lean and it would be mostly white, and too rich and it would be all black. So I already gapped this plug. It's supposed to be for 30 thousandths. I keep talking about this trick. I'm going to show you guys real quick. Take a piece of fuel line, just a regular piece of fuel line, stick the spark plug in that piece of fuel line. That's now your handle, and it will flex, and you can use that fuel line to thread this thing in. It seems to actually start better than usually using a socket and extension for whatever reason. So, that way if this cross-threaded or whatever else, the fuel line will usually spin before you mess up any, damage anything. And then once it starts spinning completely off, take off that fuel line, slide your socket back on, find your ratchet that you misplaced. You guys are probably better than I am at that. But, if it's whatever tool I need or a 10mm, it's guaranteed to be gone. So, spark plug boot back on. Listen for that solid click, which I haven't heard. Yeah, it's clicking on there. It's very quiet though. Trying to give it a quick tug to pull it off of there, and it's not coming off, but I didn't hear a solid click either. But it's on. Looks like CV15S was introduced on the John Deere LT150. That's what we're working with in 2003. Oil capacity is 2 quarts. So let's go ahead and get 2 quarts dumped in it. For now, because we're going to start it, let it run for about 30 seconds or so, and then check the oil. So tire pressure appears to be 14 pounds on the front and 10 pounds on the rear. Let's go ahead and get Let's go ahead and get some air in these things. So the tubeless tires, you expect to lose some air pressure over the winter, unless you're really lucky. I think it took quite a bit of air. So there are two pressures listed on your outside of your tire. One of them is a maximum pressure for inflating, for seating the beads. The other one is what it wants to run at. So these generally say about 35 pounds, don't exceed 35 pounds when seating the beads. It's basically the tire expanding onto the rim when you're seating a new tire on. The other pressure is what you want to run them at. And like I said, it's 14 on the front and 10 on the rear on this tractor. Most of them are somewhere close to that. So the remaining work is not going to apply to most people. So I'm going to take this opportunity to say, if you guys like the video, smashing that like and subscribe helps the channel tremendously. That's it for the tune-up. Regular maintenance on the deck, changing out the belt, changing the blades, making sure everything's working on it. Actually, I am going to grease fittings on the front. I guess I forgot to show you that. What I have left, and I'll call it bonus footage. So the end of the video is going to be fabricating a wheel for the other side of that deck on the front. And this plastic hinge hood, the hinge for the hood, the plastic piece is broken. I'm going to use the plastic welder, so I'm going to take that apart and plastic weld it together. So if you guys wanted to see that, stick around to the end of the video. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out with me, guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope you got something out of it. And as always, thank you. Disconnect my wiring. Just pull it apart. I'm going to take off a 1/2 inch bolt on this side and go around the other side and take off the other 1/2 inch bolt without it falling. So this plastic welder, I did a review on it before, and it's already paid for itself. I was able to do a pretty good repair on it. Grab a couple of wave staples, and I'll tell you what, let's start with that. The idea behind this, you take these staples and you just push it into the end here. You're going to squeeze the trigger and it's going to turn glowing red hot, and when it does you can push it into plastic, and that plastic will generally, oops, I'm about to do it again, I heard y'all yelling at me. So ideally I want to probably put one right there, and then probably another one right there. So let's see what it takes. So I'm going to try to hold it in place while I do this. Alright. Alright, now don't pull the gun away. Let the plastic soften up, or excuse me, harden back up, because you just finished melting it. So if you try to pull the gun away, you'll pull it right out of that soft plastic. So generally that's about long enough. Alright, that one's in. Let's try to do another one. Should be long enough. Pull that out. I would like to have full closure on that piece of plastic, but let's see, that's already quite a bit stiffer. Let's put one on this end over here. I tried using this on my friend's door panel, and it went through the plastic way too quick, and I saw it on the other side. So this, I only like using this on something that's got, you know, a decent amount of plastic on it. You get it lined up where you want, pull the trigger, let go of the trigger, hold it on there until that plastic starts to harden up again. And pull the gun straight out. Pretty cool concept. It's basically taking a piece of wire and melting it into the plastic. Kind of like a paper clip. I think that might actually do it. I'd like to have something that actually bridge that gap. I may be able to get a piece of maybe a fender washer or a piece of metal and glue it in place, but to be honest, this thing doesn't get opened up, you know what I mean, shaken apart too much. I'm just debating on dropping one in there or not. It's actually a pretty solid repair right now. So let me cut off all these tabs. You're supposed to be able to bend them over, but I mean, these wires are actually really stiff. So you might be able to bend them over, but I'd prefer to just clip them off. I'll leave a link in the description for this plastic welder. Actually, it works pretty good. The links in the description gives you the exact same price as if you went normal. The only thing it does is they recognize that I sent you there, and they end up giving me, I don't know, it's like 1% or something like that. But it doesn't change your cost, it doesn't change your shipping or anything. If you go to buy the replacement piece here, it's this entire piece, and then you just replace these bolts, put the hood on it. I think this piece is 40 bucks or something like that. And what it comes from is slamming the hood open too fast. And the last step is going to be a fabricated wheel for the other side. You want to be pretty careful. Whatever I do, I have to allow for the wheel to turn without hitting it. Got a wheel. Just gotta find a way to make it mount. It used to come out of here and down. I'm actually wondering though, can I put a piece of angle on there? Give me just a second. Alright friends, I'm not sure. I found a pretty good piece of metal. Kind of thinking about cutting this, cutting a notch here, so that this kind of goes over this lip, and then this, then I'd be able to weld across here, and then weld the bolt to that side of it, and I might be able to get away with that. And I would think that actually might even be stronger than that 90-degree right there. So I'm going to cut this, I'm going to measure this out, cut up this chunk so it can slide on there, and see what we get. I think I might actually weld it just like that. Be right back. Okay friends, here's what we're going to try. I don't know if I'll be able to do this with you guys in view or not. First off, not a very good welder. And second off, I'm not sure where my head needs to be to make this work. So the idea was to make sure that it basically tracks straight with the back wheels. Try and get me as many points of contact as possible. Before I get too far, to make sure everything's working like it's supposed to. Alright, let's get it back on level ground so I can set the wheel height. Okay, so what I did was I lowered the deck until the first wheel was on the ground on the other side. And we're going to be welding this bolt head to that piece of metal. You want to see roughly where it lines up. Right about there. That's what we're after, right about. Very careful where this thing's still hot. I want that right about there. I'd like for it to mash up just a little bit better than that. I'd like for it to be out like that. Let's grind part of that head off, make it flatter. Alright, so if I went too steep of an angle, and I need to wait a second before I put this on here, because I guarantee it's a little bit on the warm side. So if it's too steep of an angle, because if I didn't get this right and it's too steep of an angle, all I'm going to do is stick some washers back behind here. There's plenty of room for this to mount. Yep, I'm going to have to put some washers behind it. So I'll grab some of those, put those on, and then I can put this on, wheel, and then that, and then we'll go give it a little bit of paint. Other than that, it should be good, guys. Thanks for hanging out.